Making more art. It sounds simple, but the deeper you go, the more complicated things become. Because right now, whether you are an author, a painter, or anything in between, there's this constant pressure sitting just beneath the surface. Create more, stay relevant, or risk being forgotten. The algorithm demands it, and the audience expects it, and somewhere along the way, the question stops being, what do I want to create, and starts becoming, how much can I produce? But does making more actually make you better? Or does it slowly dilute the very thing that made your work matter in the first place? And then there's the other side of it. If we keep feeding the machine with more books and more art and more content, what are we actually contributing to? Are we creating something meaningful, or are we just adding to an endless stream of disposable work? At what point does art stop being something that lasts and start becoming something that's consumed and forgotten just as quickly? This subject turned out to be a lot bigger than we expected. Way too big for a single episode, so we are splitting things into two parts. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the question of whether making art is actually necessary to stay relevant in today's world. And then in part 2, which we'll launch next week, we'll tackle the uncomfortable idea that maybe, just maybe, making more art is part of the problem. These are the themes that my good friend and fellow artist MK Gibson and I are going to explore in the next 2 episodes. So with all that out of the way, welcome back to another Butcher Shop. Okay, so long intro,
Yes, it was a long intro this time.
but it was justified, right?
I was starting to fall asleep. I did some push-ups. I walked the dog. So, hit me up again. Okay.
I need to check my own notes.
Okay. One, do me a favor. Make the video bigger. I've asked you twice now in our private chat. You're not paying any attention
No,
to me.
because I'm in my blanket fort. I can't see my other screen. For the viewers, why am I in a blanket fort? To prevent my mic from echoing. So I at some point I will ask someone who is at home, if there's ever anyone at home, to take a picture of how I'm recording this audio, because I look dumb as hell. But it works.
All right, doing Sandy's job we were talking yesterday about just art in general, and their topic we were just like, is it more, is it better? Because it's both in like the art world, the creation of just the visual medium, but the same thing with music, same thing with writing, same thing with anything in the creative arts. Should you make more to remain relevant? But then as we talk, we like, but if we make more, are we then like just making more for the sake of consumerism, which is like kind of like you buy stuff on Amazon that's basically made to be thrown away at last short period of time before you buy a new thing, because they don't make them like they used to, as we used to say. And we knew that was going to be our topic, but I was under the assumption that we were going to like have like this kind of faux discussion, and then like, it's too big, let's cover it in the next one. But no, you laid it all out. We're going to do 2 parts. So the mystery is gone. The rabbit was always in the hat.
No, I like to prepare my viewers for what they can expect, and by the way, by knowing that today's episode is going to have a follow-up next week, we kind of invite them to join us next week as well.
No, you put it at the end, like, this is too big, we got more to talk about, so I think we need to do a follow-up, and that's where you hit them. Yeah.
Well, we always have more to talk about, so that's not
right. But I mean, on the same topic, it doesn't matter. I think there's 2 different ways we approach this, and you're wrong. So anywho, let's start with the beginning.
No, I'm just thinking the way we got here is because yesterday we were on the phone, and then you got me thinking about this because you are launching these rebranded books that you wrote like a couple of years ago, and the new covers look sexy as fuck. That's like the first thing I want to say about them. The new Technomancer covers, I really, really love them.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, it's one of those, like, for all 9 of your viewers, it's one of those, like you say, fellow artists, like, we never see any of us, always see Sandy drawing, and you're not going to see, like, you look at my book covers, like, that's this new stuff. I don't illustrate the way Sandy does. I'm okay, but she's a way better illustrator than I'll ever be. But I'm a decent graphic working digital kind of creation, like mixed media guy.
I'll make sure your covers appear on screen this time.
Sure.
I'll show them a little bit of.
I was actually working on some tweaks this morning because I got the proofs back. I wanted to see glossy or matte. I always like to do side by side. So I did book one of the, like, the Technomancer 1 and Technomancer 2, and one in glossy, one in matte, to look at them. Glossy all the way, all day, every day.
And matte was, of course, way better.
It's not actually. It's true. I gave it even like a woman's touch. Right? Like my wife, she's like, base, because the background has the gray wash and the colors pop more, the glossy all the way, because it's you're muting what makes it beautiful. The glossy really makes it come out. So.
No, I agree. Not every cover lends itself for matte covers.
Right, and that's why I always want to do it side by side. And then I was looking at the back, like I love the back, but I still, some of the ratios are a little bit off now that I see it in its physical form. So I was working on some of that this morning before we got on this call. So always busy. But should we make more to remain relevant? And you brought up that point because of my books, and it's a hard thing, like, at least in the writing world. Let's say you have a series that's out. You love that series. Maybe it did well. Maybe it didn't do well, but maybe it's a new cover. Maybe you need to, like, do a rebranding or refreshing to, like, get it in front of new eyes. And there's always this fear that if you take time off, someone else is going to take your spot. Every rap video about it is about that. If you take time off, someone's going to take your spot. So you better, you better work hard and never stop. And that's that fear that's been pushed into us as creatives most of our life. But at the same time, you have to ask the question, is it healthy? Because, or are you devaluing your own work by just making more, and so you had a good point when we were talking yesterday, which is about when you go to the conventions. Do you bring old art or new art, or what mix do you do? Because your old art, you might feel has more heart, but you have better technique years later with new art. So what do you feel?
Well, I mean, that's the hitting the nail on the head. Is that the expression? Am I finally using the right expression here?
Close enough. Let's go with it.
So, yeah, I remember saying that. So I go to a lot of conventions to sell my art and to sell my books. And some of these pieces have been with me for like 3 or 4 years now, and I just don't sell them. And over time, you create more, and sometimes the pieces that don't sell, they start stacking up, because not every piece you create is your best piece, obviously. So what I started asking myself at a certain point is, am I creating art to sort of replace the pieces that haven't been sold yet? Or am I still making art because I really, really enjoy making art? Now, of course, like, the first answer I will always give you is I create art because I love to create art. I've said it before in some of our previous episodes, like, art is my sanity. If I don't have my art, I will slowly go crazy and probably, like, tear out my hair or something, like do something weird. But now that my art has become also part of my income, I'm looking at things through a different lens. And, well, basically it boils down to what I just said. Like, I have to bring new things with me, because, if that piece hasn't sold in 3 years, then God knows if it ever will. And at the same time, and this is just an interesting tie-in that I just realized, is related. I also sell my work at a shop here in the Netherlands, and it is at a very busy shopping street. So hundreds, if not thousands, of people pass that shop every day. But because it's a local thing, it is also many of the same people who pass that shop every day. So if they see the same thing every time they pass the shop, you're not really inviting them to come in, because they see the same thing. Like, why should I go in this time? So in a way, you are constantly forced to make and bring new stuff in there, to keep people interested in what you're doing. And that's where this sort of conundrum came in our conversation, because, do we want to create as much as we do, or are we kind of secretly being pushed to create more than we can or have to create? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's scary. It is a scary feeling that obviously, no, okay. I have so many thoughts about this, and I try to find something that's cogent. Ironically, we talked about it yesterday. Say we'll record it today. And so of course I didn't think
We
about
should
it
have
at
recorded
all.
yesterday.
I didn't think about it at all, and then here we are at the moment. No, there's a fear. There's a natural fear of rejection every artist has. It's on top of your personal life of feeling whether or not you are dating life, professional life. This fear of rejection, not feeling like you fit in, not feeling like you're wanted, not feeling like you're valued, not feeling loved. Now add that to the soul of a creative who's like, I have this idea I want to share, and then people are like, it's met with a resounding, it's fine, or cool, or good for you, like pat you on the head like your child. And or what's worse, if you find a little bit of success and people are like, that's really cool, well done, and then you like, okay, but that feeling is addictive, and how do I replicate it? You try again, but then like, okay, it's more of the same, but it's still pretty good, and then what, and then what, and then what, and how do you keep it going? How do you stay fresh? How do you stay relevant? And there is stick with me. There are many times I've said in storytelling that you can learn so much about the art of telling a story if you watch professional wrestling. I know. And because in professional wrestling, you learn very quickly, the villain is usually the main character that drives the story, because the hero, the Superman of the world, the good guys, they react to what the bad guy does. If the bad guy is out causing havoc, the good guy has to stand up to him. Or if the bad guy is winning, a champion must rise. And that's the essence of storytelling. But the reason it's germane to this topic is the people that survive the business know how to reinvent themselves, because if they're out there doing the exact same moveset with the exact same look, the exact same way, or the slight variations, it gets stale and they get rejected. The masses will reject you if you remain stale and stagnant. That is a truism. And if you're always trying to do the same thing, but with a slight twist, again, it's going to be met with a resounding, it's fine. You have to find ways to really revamp something, but with just enough of your old style that they know it's you. And that's why a lot of authors will jump genres, because once they're trying a different genre, they're not tied down to the genre flaws that other people who write in that genre are. Sometimes they can bring a fresh voice to that. Same thing with art. If you're not used to like we said before, people know Picasso for his strange cubism, but did you go back and ever look at his art before that? His actual his actual realistic paintings that you don't realize are Picasso, because he wasn't doing anything new. He was just doing realistic paintings like everybody else was doing realistic paintings. It wasn't that special. The colors weren't that verbose. It wasn't anything that really made him stand out until he switched his entire style to the cubism.
But then once he switched, he really went into the niche. Like he hardly did anything other than
he can't go back at that point. Yeah. Now that's what he became famous for at the time, obviously. But
but so I wonder, so how would we connect that to, artists and authors like ourselves who are not, Matt Dinneman or...
Sure. Well, okay, but I'll use the Picasso thing. Like, how many Picasso paintings look kind of like a Picasso painting? How many Jackson Pollocks look like Jackson Pollock? You have to once you reach a certain level, I feel that if you are now known as the blank creative, if you're not willing to switch everything, then you should dial yourself back a little bit. Because if you come in constantly giving more of the same, you're going to devalue your own work. It's just going to happen. If you're not willing to try, you can take your style and add it.
I wonder, is that really true though? Because I know plenty of artists who are extremely successful, and they are successful because they are very good at what they do, and they do this very singular thing.
Right. That is true. There is success. How do you feel about doing the same thing all the time? Unless you truly, truly love it. Like you are blissfully happy to draw in the exact same style.
Okay, but there is a difference, I think. I think there's a difference between doing the same thing or creating the same thing. Because, for example, I don't know if you are familiar with her, Annie Stech. She is, I think she's actually an American artist. But she makes these incredibly complex and beautiful oil paintings, all fantasy genre. Sometimes you have this little fairy riding a frog, or she has this gathering of opossums dancing with badgers in the forest. Like, it's whimsical as hell, and her work is absolutely beautiful. But she, when you see her work, it's hers. It has this very distinct style, very distinct technique, but each painting is very different from the other. She tells different stories in each of her paintings. but every time she reveals a work, it is similar in the sense of, the process of creation has been the same. So I wonder if we should differentiate between creating the same or working in the same style but making different pieces of work.
That's a very good point, and actually, and I appreciate that because it helps me I unfortunately everything's like my writer's brain sees things in the writer's world. I can see someone's voice or you read someone's voice and how they write, but it's like that doesn't always translate to, if you write this comedy action style in these type of mediums, it doesn't. Are you going to try to write a drama that's also comedy action? It doesn't always. They don't always translate. But are you trying something new? Are you trying different mediums? It's still your voice, but how do you work with it? So you're right in that capacity. Like it is a scary thing because I always fear that making more doesn't necessarily keep you relevant. I always am afraid you become an annoyance. That's the creative in me. Now there is a very realistic, and I mean no disrespect to anybody listening whatsoever. There is, I forget what the psychological term is, but when you ascribe value to something where there is none, because you love creative X, you think that product Y is great regardless of merit. And because so-and-so made it, it has to be good. And it's like kind of like here's a perfect example. A lot of us kids from my generation grew up watching Star Wars. So when The Phantom Menace was announced, written and directed by George Lucas, we lost our goddamn minds. We were at the theater. We were ready to go when that came out in 1999. So I'd been like,
are we that old?
Was it 99? Yeah, well, I think it came out like it was right around 99. Yeah. So I was 24 years old, something like that. Like I've been waiting since I was a child. It's 1977. I was 2 years old when I saw this in the Star Wars in the theater. So 20 years I've been waiting to see this, and it was perfectly fine. But at the time, my brain was just blown away. More Star Wars, yay. But the longer I sat with it, like, wow, Trade Federations, stilted shots, static shots, everything with CGI in the background and not good CGI compared to what we know now. Oh my God, it's not as good as I thought it was. And now some people will still defend it. Some people will say, but no, you have to understand it's better here. And like, yeah, but it wasn't. It objectively just wasn't. It didn't have the heart that the other stuff had. It was, and we give value to it because it's Star Wars. It's George Lucas, right? It has to be good. But maybe it's not beyond critique. Maybe it's not beyond criticism. And maybe cranking out more of them didn't actually enhance the overall narrative of Star Wars, the product of Star Wars. Maybe it ruined it, maybe it made it worse. I don't know. Or maybe just the bloom was off the rose and maybe it was always bad. It unfortunately made me question more than made me love. And so, yeah, like making more to stay relevant actually hurt me in that case,
Yeah, but you see that going both ways, because there's also this is also something we mentioned in our conversation yesterday. I have to say it correctly: 20 books to 20K or 20 books to 50K. What's the
20 books to 50K?
There you go. So there are a lot of people who successfully manage to cross the threshold, and they write 20 books and they earn 50K, and they call it a success. Now, I do believe that success in this case differs for the author than for the audience, because when it's quantity over quality, I don't know, I always struggle to sort of believe that the books coming out of those sort of projects are quality books. I have to be very careful with what I'm saying. There's probably some very good books in there.
You're allowed to have your opinions. You're not giving it objective like it's good or it's bad. Like it's like I was saying earlier. People who love a particular medium, like I tend to write in genres that, like, unfortunately, like don't necessarily have a particular niche, and because of that, I think that hurts me in the long run. As a creative who wants to sell his work. I'm fortunate. I'm not reliant on my book sales to live. If I was relying on my book sales to live, then I would write exactly what the market wants and the way the market wants it, and I just write it, and because I don't have to rely on my books, I don't have to. So a lot of those particular books and those particular mediums they are, like, for example, this is no secret that people love romantasy. Is very hot and will be for a little while longer, right? People love romantasy books, whether that is the the fairy fucking, cow fucking, what shapeshifter fucking,
anything if it has a whole. Let's just of course. Okay.
Minotaur fucking, whatever. But it's usually a girl who feels unseen, unloved, unwanted, doesn't feel like she has agency, meets somebody that's powerful, brooding, and everything that she's ever wanted in a companion, male, female, or somewhere between, and they have a lot of hot boning and et cetera, et cetera. And that's cool. Sometimes there's a story about fantasy involved. Sorry, guys. But a lot of them are like a little bit faster to put out, and you're not winning the Pulitzer over this. You're not breaking the thing. Yes, I know Rebecca Yarros' fourth one is very popular. I know it was up for one of some of the bigger awards, and that's really cool. I'm not saying anything negative about her or her work. She's earned her spot, but I am saying that people who are emulating that style are cranking out fast books because the people who consume those books fucking consume those books. They love them so much that it's almost like they don't care anymore. It's author be damned. Like, it's just how much spice. This one's like, this author's good spice. This is high spice. And it's less about the author. It's less about the work. It's all about the product. And that product is a lot of spice. So in those ways, it also, like, do you even feel like you made a relevance as a creative in those things? Or are you just contributing to, like, kind of like, it's like Dune. Are you just contributing to the flow of spice? And those are real questions people have to ask themselves. And again, I'm not belittling. And there was years, like, people forget in the 2010s, urban fantasy was so huge at that time that's like everyone wanted to like do their version of urban fantasy. And there were so many books. I read a lot of them.
And that's when you wrote Technomancer.
Right. But I wanted to do something different. When I wrote Technomancer, it's like, I don't want to write what I was writing. I wanted to write I wanted to start, I wrote Technomancer the first few things in the early 2010s, but it wasn't published till like 2016 kind of thing. But it was one of those, like, I wanted to, like, they're writing, like, monsters live in the modern world. Okay, cool. But I don't, or, these fantasy elements in the modern world. That's cool, but everyone else is doing that. I wanted to move mine to somewhere else. So something that was very personal to me was like, I am not a quote unquote religious guy. I grew up in the faith, but I'm not that faithful now, but I still respect where I came from. And like, so I had a lot of memories from growing in the faith. So, and also a lot of like scare tactics. So the Book of Revelation scared the shit out of me as a kid. When you're going through, like, everything's going to come back and hell's going to rise and it's not good for people. So that scared me as a child. So I took my urban fantasy, set it after a biblical apocalypse. What can I do? Can I take the same fantasy elements, but after the thing that scared me as a child? So it became mine. So I took ownership of my own fear and my own story in that capacity. But I used a lot of the same fantasy, like urban fantasy elements. So that's how I try to make it different. However, when it comes to, like, again, making more, like, I have a lot of writer friends that are petrified that if they stop the series, then people won't know who they are. And it's potentially stops their income. So like, this series is the one that sells the best. So if I stop writing the series, does that kill me being a writer anymore?
But I mean, this is relevant for you just as well, because, we've had many conversations where first you started with, well, Technomancer needs 2 more books. And I was like, it's going to be 1 more book and then it's done.
Maybe 2. I've been thinking about that again, but still, yeah.
Sure. But I mean, this is on your mind as much as anyone else, because you have people asking, like, hey, when is the next Technomancer book coming out? And are you choosing to serve these people by saying, well, fine, I'll hammer out, another Technomancer before I finish all these personal projects?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing a Sherlock Holmes thing, and that's the thing. One thing I've never been afraid of is letting a story end.
No, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, are you going to sit down, crack your fingers, and get to work on this next Technomancer book, or are you just going to pursue your personal projects that you want out first? Regardless of what people are asking of you, because I think that ties into the conversation that we're having here. Is people expect you, or they ask you to do a certain thing.
Oh yeah, like, give us the thing that is very true. So in the writing world, the other big fear is, are you a one and done? Are you like basically a 1 pump chump of writing, maybe a 2 pump chump? Because that's a sex joke, by the way, people. It's because everyone, like, they know you for that one series. They love that one series that you write. And they're like, that's cool, but here's another series. Like, thank you, but where's the one we like, And some authors can pull off 2 series. And very few pull off 3 or 4, Like, my friend Drew Hayes is one of the few people I know that he can write pretty much anything and his fans will follow along, most of my author friends, like, they have their main series that people know them for, and they're trying other things, but they never seem to quite get that same level of penetration within their own fan base, and that hurts. They might bring in new fans, but it's fairly unubiquitous to like have. I can write anything and my fans will come along with it as long as it's of quality. And that's a scary thing for a lot of writers. For me, I know I'm working on some side projects. I've been working on side projects for 2 years now, and but I never published any of them because I've been trying to get stuff out of my head, trying to get stuff written down, think about it, because I don't rush my writing. And that unfortunately put me in a bad space when it came to the people who like at least my main 2 book series. And they want more. And so, yes, I'm going to spend the rest of this year working on my main book series because I've got enough stuff written down that I know where I'm going to go once I've closed on my main 2, technically 3 series. Then I know where my career is going to go, regardless of whether or not it makes me money. It's where I want to go, but I do owe it to the people that help put me here to finish out what they like, because without them, I have nothing. They're the ones who put me here. They're the ones who have like supported me and bought my books and helped promote me, because everything I've done is organically. I don't really pay for much. I don't really pay for that much in the way of advertising. I even got, like, when I'm on the Authors and Dragons podcast, it's because a fan who's of me knew them and like said, hey, you should join these guys. And I got to meet them and hang out with them. And I get everything I've done is just organics. So, by the way,
you and I even found each other
there
over
on the
this.
thing is great.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm actually watching the video. By the way, the technique you just did with that little lighting effect on the card of the really well done. Also, for the folks who are watching the video version of this, like, the reason we picked the Death Cat is because it is like this. If you're not relevant, are you dead? So it's one of those like. So I'm sorry to derail there, ADHD brain. I saw it, but like, it was just this cool effect you just did that I love watching talented people do cool tricks. I'm like, oh, okay, now I can add that to my repertoire. I'll practice a few times, but like, it was just neat,
I'm happy to inspire. I'm glad it worked. No, but you're right. I guess, like, I wonder how this transfers into the art world, though, because...
Well, that was gonna be my question for you, because, okay, so when you're at conventions, what sells the best for you when you're selling your art? Let's focus on the art for a second. I know your book sells sometimes. I know the books we work together on has sold, but like, I'm talking about your actual art. Like, what sells the best?
And I think there is no answer to that, because okay. I think there is an answer to that, but it's a little bit more complicated than this specific piece. First of all, it depends on the time of the year, and then it depends on which convention I'm going to. Time of year, usually, obviously, the winter pieces go well. Like, there's this snowy landscape that I made with a Dutch windmill and a little boy and a dragon. I've done a few like snowy landscape things. In summer, you often see dragons going out a lot more than in any other period of time. Recently, and this is a very recent development, and I'm not sure if I can really pinpoint like the success of this, because it's only been like 2 or 3 cons at this point, so I don't have them for a full year yet. But the new medieval memes that I've created, they are doing incredibly well. But I started selling them in spring during very niche conventions. So, ask me again at the same time next year, and I might have a completely different story there to tell. So it really depends. And again, this ties into the whole discussion of, should I make the art because people expect me to, or, should I keep creating because I need to sell it, or whatever reason behind it, other than do I simply love creating this? Because, of course, I go to a convention to sell my work. I pay to sell my work, so I need to earn some money, to get that investment back. But at the same time, then, it forces me to look at what should I create, because I have to play into what people are buying. So I have to look at the successes of previous years and previous times, in order to at least cover the costs of such a convention. Now, ideally, you want to earn a little bit more, because then, it's better for everybody if you earn a little bit more money than that what you put in. So yeah, I've really found that, ever since I started doing this, sorry, let me rephrase that because that was Dunglish. Ever since I decided to pursue this career as an artist, or at least part-time, my view on my art has changed, because my art suddenly has a purpose, apart from being art, being pretty, being cool to look at, because now it also needs to earn money. It needs to bring in money. So yeah, I do think I've changed a lot. I'm going to refer to what you said in one of the previous episodes, where you said, well, I learned to know you as like the mistress of shadows. Your work was so incredibly dark. I love working on dark pieces, but dark pieces rarely sell. So I kind of stepped away and turned it into something cute or something funny. And now I've really noticed that humor is a very good selling point. The illustrations that have either like literally a funny text on them, or something that visually represents something funny, they sell a lot better than darker pieces. So yeah, things have really changed because of the demand, quote unquote. So I sometimes really struggle to find a way to sort of navigate this. Like, is this something that I want to make? Is this something that I have to make because I need to earn some money with this? I find it very difficult, really.
It is. I mean, there's always going to be this fear of stepping away from security, for something that is, passion, like if you ever obviously making extra money with your art is always good. People that can for even people who monetize their little quirky dances, TikTok views, their little weirdo things that they do. We all scroll, we all have a video personality or two, whether that's on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, something that that's person, oh, I like their stuff, it's cute, you smile for the next 60 seconds or less, and then you scroll on, and that person gets a couple of bucks every time someone does that. And for a while, that for them, that money feels good at the moment. However, it's only a matter of time before they're forgotten, because doing the same thing over and over and over, only there's a repetition that people enjoy. But then there comes this moment someone else will do the exact same thing with a slight variation or better again. So there is that need to reinvent yourself.
Well, I mean, this is even within the arts, this is super relevant, because people are doing this again and again, because we have the whole AI thing going on. People see my work, they find it on my Insta, they take a snapshot, I put it into a machine, they say, make something like this in this style, bam, and there it is. Next time you go to a convention, you see a table that has, very similar work to what I make, but then prompted. So we are constantly competing with others that way. I do have to say that most of the time this is friendly competition. But sometimes, you really see someone steal something. I found my own pieces, literally my own illustrations on Etsy, from someone who took a photo in my booth. They had a very good camera, they put the lens just right, they took a picture, and now they sold the print on Etsy. And I was furious. The competition isn't always fair, and especially these days when you're competing against computers and AI and all that kind of stuff. So what you said is super relevant.
Well, it's like you said earlier, way back when I was talking about reinventing yourself, and we're saying we're having this discussion whether someone needs to. Sometimes their art is so recognizable that even if blah 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 blah. But what we also just said, now there is always been that blend of the two, because you said what I mentioned again, you're mistress of shadows, darkness. You that's what you're feeling. That's what because you have a deep love for cyberpunk, for grit, for grungy things, for that stuff, and it's but there's still a part of you that's still, and I'll be, cutesy, girly. You but how can you take the cute thing and add it to the dark thing to make a sandy thing, even when you do the little mouse guys, that they're cute mice, but they're usually in dark locations or stads, they're in a very dangerous cave or
Yeah, the story of my images has become more important, right? Because it's through the story that I convey what I really want to tell, even though it looks very cute. Because
that's what I'm talking about when it comes about the evolution. If you were still doing the same black and white, very dark, few color stuff art when I met you, even 4 years ago, you'd be stagnant, that's a me thing where I'm I was talking to my son, you should always be trying to better yourself in some capacity. It's like, look, be a little bit smarter, be a little faster, be a little bit stronger, a little bit more creative, be a little bit more whatever. You're like, sitting still is just, you're just waiting for the end. And I don't want to wait for the end. I got shit to do. So, I like seeing when like people push themselves, and that's one of the reasons we're friends. I have writer friends who just don't want to. They just, the fans like this, and I do it like, and I get it, but there is a dark truth that few writer friends want to admit. And it's very simple. You as a person at home listening to this, it's a very easy thing. Go find your favorite author, and then, or maybe even like, maybe not the top author, but like someone you like their work, and look at their reviews for book 1. Cool. Now look at book 2. How many reviews are there? Then book 3, you're going to see this dwindling number. Even some of the biggest names, look at 50,000 reviews. Cool. Great. Book 2, 45,000. Book 3, 25,000. Book 4, 15,000. You're going to, and that's for major people. Like, I'm not talking like, just someone else who has a passion for writing. You're going to see these numbers, like almost, it's like 40%, like you're going to see these cuts, and it's mathematical, and it's the truth. Someone might love all your books, but they don't have time, or they just don't feel like, oh, they don't need my time. They don't need my effort.
In my mind, I'm trying to put these puzzle pieces together, because I think in books, in the book world, this works a little bit different than in the art world. And my brain, first of all, thinks of, well, it takes a lot longer to write a book than to create an illustration, or paint a painting. Even though, a painting can take weeks or sometimes months, especially if you're working with oils. But it's still a lot faster than a book that you work on for, I don't know, at least a year maybe. So, of course, the production speed of art is a lot faster. So yeah, I can crank out more illustrations than you can crank out books in a year. And so the shot that I take is a lot wider. I shoot buckshot, whereas you shoot like a whatever caliber single shot. And so I think that changes the story as well, because the response to my audience is a lot more direct and a lot more quickly than, what happens with books. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I'm not, okay, so when you do your kind of work, and I'm not making it personal, but it's like you tend to work in series. Like this is the series of cats because you're working on this particular project, or your Age of Mice. Once you do 4 to 8 pieces in the Age of Mice, you're good. Or when you did the Dutch Master series, I'm
bored. 4 to 8 literally, this is just the reason. Like, I'm done doing this. And right, I do something else.
And that's kind of my point. Your relevancy. Like, should you create more to be relevant? No, you should create more because it feels good. And if you but that is in a perfect world. Like, for some people, like, yeah, if I'm working, this is how I get paid. I need to stay relevant, and I have to find better ways of staying relevant. Just doing more of the same to stay relevant, I think, is a bad thing. Like, and that's ultimately what I'm working. Like my argument, my personal stance, doing more of the same to stay relevant is basically you're just putting nails in your own coffin. Because
I'm very happy that you're holding up this mirror to me for a second, because now with the whole medieval things, I'm ready to milk that shit out. I am ready to bump out as many memes as I can.
Until you're not. Exactly. But okay, how many different series have you worked? I mean, not how many different series, like off the top of your head, but since in the last couple of years, like I just mentioned a few, like we have the Cataclysm, I think we're working on now. You had the Age of Mice, you had the Dutch Masters, you have the medieval cut things right now. You had the there was another
one. I wanted to work on the Sinister Serenades, which were like the dark fairy tales,
right?
That never really got off the ground.
Well, I'll hit me up later about that off camera, because I got some questions about that myself. No, it's good stuff. But my point is, like, you have these, you might crank out, again, 4, 6, 8, 10 illustrations in this particular series, but then you change series because your inspiration is shifting to a new direction, or you're getting paid to do a new thing as well.
No, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's very much the case with the cats. Like, I'm getting paid for the cats, and I have to crank out 23 of them. I am over halfway. I am celebrating. I'm over the halfway marker. But yeah,
I will not call out anybody by name, but it's like I have some other friends that like they do more of the same, and because when they try something different, they get met with indifference, so they go back to more of the same, and there's this fear of like trying to like letting go of more of the same, And it's just me. It's my belief that more of the same to stay relevant it's just a slow death. Sometimes it's a fast death, but I think more of the same to stay relevant it's one of the reasons, like, I personally don't read books past, like, most series past book 7. If a book series is still going on past book 7, I tend to tap out, because tell your goddamn story.
What about standalone books? What about standalone novels?
They're harder, honestly, because it is. I have 2 standalone books right now, only because neither of them did really well enough to generate making a second or a third. That would be Agents of Mortal and The Cape as a Lie. Now, the problem with the Cape one is because it never got put on audio, and that's where I make a lot of my money, is on audio.
I am such a terrible friend, because I honestly thought that The Cape was a Lie was part of the Shadowmaster series.
It is not. It's totally
so
fine.
Sorry.
It's okay. It was my foray into superhero action. People who have read it really enjoy it. It's just, unfortunately, like, I wrote a superhero book when the bubble popped. You know, it's a book I've been sitting on for years, and I never put it out the way I wanted to. And I finally got around to doing it. By the time I did that, you know, people are like, I'm kind of over this. In a post-Endgame world, I don't need more superheroes, kind of thing. Like, well, I really shit the bed on that one, because I did not hit when it was hot, because I didn't want to just follow trends. I was sitting on it. It was just the right thing. I had a personal story I wanted to tell. You know, and it's I always put that in these type of mediums, and like, it's people that read it really enjoy it, but again, it's people that didn't really read it. You know, it wasn't a popular thing. And now the Agents of Mortal book, I really enjoyed that. People who really liked it, who read it, really liked it. But again, it came out right around the top of time of, like, because it follows these, you know, these cops following around mythical creatures living in the modern world. It's a comedic urban fantasy story. Unfortunately, we were at that time when it came out. Police officer presence were not loved by anybody across the world at the moment. So
the timing was very unfortunate.
It was kind of unfortunate. It came out during a lot of that ACAB stuff, and so it didn't really land the way I wanted it to land. I was hoping more for, like, you know, a cop action show comedy kind of vibe, and it unfortunately just, I mean, it did well for the limited run that it had. And again, I have this one person who reads my books all the time on Goodreads, and they hate all my books. I don't know why they keep reading them, but they hate all of it. Always leaves a review, always very negative. I'm stilted. I'm the worst. I have bad ideas. I'm a bad writer and a bad person as far as this person's concerned half the time. But for whatever reason, that's the book they like. I haven't wrote to them, like, I even messaged them on Goodreads, like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, I like this one. Like, okay.
Wow.
Cool.
See, and that's what you get for just sticking to what you want to do and not, you know, rolling with what's being expected.
Sure. You know, but again, like, my villains books are my number one selling, but I still want to end that series because I do not want to make more of them just to stay relevant. I have a story to tell. After I write the next book, the 7th book, it's the end. That's where the story ends. And there's even going to be a line in there, basically, because the villain talks to the audience, it's a fourth wall breaking book. I could start this whole thing over. I could just rebrand this called Heroes Rule and start at the very beginning, tell you the exact same story, and you'd buy it. You know, and here's the thing, it's true, they would. Because comedy action books tend to sell a lot better as long as you got something quirky, you got a good hook, you got a good title, a fun looking cover, and those. Because it's having Doritos, it's having cake. It is empty calories, but it's fun, it's tasty. And, you know, sometimes people need that. And I applaud people that, you know, that's why you said earlier, comedy and lighthearted things are easier to get across to somebody than dark and moody. And it's like asking somebody to go on a dark and moody journey with you is like, well, why? Are we drinking buddies?
Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. Hey, but we need to ask the audience their question again. Like what we want to. I mean, we could bring it back to the very base of things, like. What is the base of this thing? Should we create art because we are being demanded to make more art, or ...
Yeah. Should there be more art just to remain relevant? But it also leads into, but is making more devaluing art, and that is it's a linked but separate issue, which we want to talk about in the next bit. So.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole other episode, and see, I mean, like right now, I feel like we're in the middle of a conversation.
We are.
So I think it was a very good idea to start the episode by saying, hey, it's going to be a 2-part.
Oh my God, you really need a pat on the back today, don't you? I'm fresh out of fucking gold stickers, Sandy. I am sorry. You know,
I want a little star.
No, you did. You done good, kid. I will allow this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, kid, she's just turned 37. But thank
I'm freaking 50.
Yeah, you're ancient. That's true.
I am ancient.
All right. Okay. So the question is, dear viewers, should we create more art, or are we devaluing our work by creating more art? Which also ties in to what we are going to talk about in the next episode.
Yep.
So make sure you don't miss that one. And you can actually do that by reminding yourself to hit that like, subscribe, and notification button, because then when the next episode launches, you get a little notification that says, "Hey, your next episode is up."
Oh, that's a
Usually
good shilling.
every
Oh.
Friday.
I'm applauding. I'm applauding your shilling. You did good.
See, I got another compliment.
You're welcome.
I got another star on my forehead. In any case, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you want to check out more and get early access, go to patreon.com/SandyButchers, and don't forget to buy Kiwi's books.
Yep.
There you go. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everybody.